Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we talk about movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong.
All right.
All right.
It's a Bentley.
Why do we have to be
Do
Russian?
the-
Why
Wait.
Well, how did that kid sound? All right.
The
don't know.
bad
No
Russian
kid has
accent?
ever sounded that way.
Those kids had the worst Russian accents of all time.
Those little turds.
It was not great.
This Tweedledee and
Also, they're the
Tweedledum.
ones who survived. The two worst characters. They are the ones who survived.
Hey,
But
they're-
an act of sacrifice.
Yeah.
Really meant something.
I don't know. I kind of like them. They remind me of the demons from Hercules.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
I was joking.
I mean,
They're
it's
not.
like, sure.
Maybe
you-
one of them. But
That's a stain upon the memory of
There's a little Titanic
those
ship.
characters.
The movie we're talking about is 2012, a movie that came out in 2009, just to give people enough breathing room before the world
to cause
ended.
mass hysteria.
Yes. The movie was directed by Roland Emmerich, someone we haven't talked about yet. He directed Universal Soldier, Stargate, Independence Day Resurgence, The Patriot, Godzilla, 1997.
I didn't know he did Patriot.
Yeah,
That's a
the
good
day.
movie.
Yep, The Day After Tomorrow, 10,000 BC, Anonymous, Midway, and in theaters currently, Moonfall,
Okay.
a movie where the moon falls
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
into the earth.
That's a
Hold on.
creative
There's
name.
a lot of... I didn't realize this guy. He's a heavy hitter. Like, a lot of those are
He
top
is
tier.
he is like the ultimate disaster movie guy, and he
Yeah.
knows it too. He's like, if there's one thing I'm gonna be good at, it's gonna be making things go boom on the screen, or not really go boom, but get destroyed. Because go boom is Michael Bay. He was
Yeah.
like, Michael Bay's zigging, I'm gonna zag, and everything's just gonna collapse, or it's gonna be some sort of natural disaster or alien influenced
Right.
disaster. He is the disaster movie guy, and for better or worse, like, I gotta give him credit for that.
Yeah.
You know, he's had a number of misses, but he knows how to depict a disaster on the screen, whether the movie it's in is bad or good.
He does seem like a director that's just having fun with it, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, let's throw these crazy ideas onto the big screen.
Yeah, the funny thing is he directed this because he was like, this will be my final thing. It'll be the end-all, be-all disaster movie, and I'll never come back to the genre again.
Because
I'll
the world's ending.
Yeah, I'll put everything into this. Like every idea I've ever had about disasters will be in this movie. Mm-hmm. And then of course we got like Independence Day Resurgence and Moonfall, another disaster movie.
Never mind.
But never mind. But yeah, it's the well that he just keeps coming back to kind of, I don't know, give him another little boost to get something else in the works, I guess. But the movie stars John Cusack, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Amanda Peet, Tandy Newton, Danny Glover, and Woody Harrelson. And it's written by Harold Closer and Roland Emmerich. Anyway, I forgot to introduce us. I'm Reese. Across from me we have,
David.
to his left,
Irina.
and to my right,
Oleg.
also known as
Noah.
Hey, look, Oleg actually he was Russian. He's actually Russian.
Oleg.
Wait.
Alec.
His,
I don't.
they did say it differently than
Alec.
Oleg.
It's Alec and Oleg, I'm pretty sure. And then there's
Both,
Yuri, which is daddy.
And unfortunately, no AJ tonight. He is caught up in a whole bunch of work stuff right now, and he's going to be taking a brief break from the podcast.
No. This is where you say your thing. He is busy
With a
hanging off
geology
a
crisis.
plane.
Geography
He'll be back.
crisis. I don't know what it was called.
He unfortunately was in that third arc that was no good, and
Oh no.
He's saving them. He'll be back as soon as they get it up and running.
he's fine. He's saving a dog or something. he's
Wow, guys, this is getting more and
and
more
still
spectacular.
watching a different movie from us.
But no, on a more serious note, yeah, he is just going to be taking a few episodes off. He may or may not be making an appearance in a few of the upcoming episodes. That's kind of pending right now. But he's just got a lot of work stuff going on. So we're just going to kind of wait that out, and we're going to do this easy breezy disaster movie miniseries in the meantime.
Let him take a break.
Yeah, so-
recuperate.
AJ, if you're listening, we miss you. Can't wait to have you back on here.
Make sure to hydrate.
We
keep,
love you.
Keep saving those dogs. Keep, working on that third arc. I promise. All the hard work you put in is going to get that ship up and running for everybody.
I can imagine all the listeners who just turn it off now because they know he's not going to be on it.
AJ's not here.
No fun
One of
Mayan
them being
facts.
David's brother.
Yeah. All right. With that said, for those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then, towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, David, had you seen 2012 before this episode?
I have not.
Had not?
I still haven't seen it. No, yeah, I had not seen it. I've seen many scenes from it, and I thought that maybe I had seen it because of that, but as I was watching it, there's a lot of gaps, so I would say no, I have not seen it.
Or maybe somebody put it on, you fell asleep.
It could be.
Or maybe you just saw the Corridor Crew episode
That
on
also
it.
might be.
Irina, how about you?
Yeah, I think I only saw it once before. Might have been one of those days where you just dropped by and said, "Hey, let's watch this," and put it on. Mm-hmm. So not much as far
When
as
am I
memories.
not doing that? I feel
You
like
do
this,
that a lot.
The funny
You
thing is,
share a
this
lot of
movie is
films.
something that I wouldn't be like, but it's taking it
thing.
off and being like, everybody's got to see this one.
You have this way of we need to just kind of put something on in the background, like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be anything grand. It's just like, yeah, this was fine. Let's
Although
put it
I would
on.
say the intention of this one was to be grand.
Yeah. No, it is grand, but it's just
I
kind
know
of,
exactly what you mean.
You like
Yeah.
having a little bit of filler going on.
Noah, how about you?
I had seen this. I don't remember when I saw it.
Yeah, I don't
just
either.
know
It's
that
weird.
I saw it.
Yeah.
And I actually remembered it almost precisely as it was.
Yep.
Somehow. But, yeah.
I think there was a lot of hype for this movie, or
Yeah,
at least
maybe.
there was a lot of marketing as far as getting 2012 out there,
Oh, yeah.
It is striking, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
It's very memorable. It's like a firework, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
For my part, I was I knew exactly what this movie was going to be. I was in college at the time when I saw it. Saw the trailers. It was 2012. It was 2009, but I saw the trailers for 2012, and it was really capitalizing on the latest craze of everyone being like, oh, 2012, that's when the Mayan calendar ends. That's when
Right.
everything's
Yep.
going to happen. So it really took that ball and ran with it. And honestly, it's a very smart idea in terms of marketing.
Right.
By
And
the way-
in terms of, I don't know, what's something that everyone can kind of latch onto.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the huge thing at the time.
As dumb as it is, the premise for this is something that, like, I got to go see that.
Yeah.
You know? So I went to the theater by myself because I was like, this is just going to be a really dumb, fun time. And I love disaster movies. I'm actually one of the defenders of Day After Tomorrow, which also a Roland Emmerich movie. It's not a smart movie, but it is a fun disaster movie. And I was kind of like, okay, this is like that times 3 or something. But the first time I watched this, I was a little, even though like I had low expectations for it going in, I was still a little underwhelmed because the first time I saw it, it didn't do the foreboding thing well
Right.
with the disaster, which is part of the fun of a disaster movie. Like have something that's foreboding. And this just kind of just throws you into it.
Yeah.
But that was like my memory of it the first time.
Which for me, that foreboding is really well done, and a lot of people will disagree, but I think
Right.
it was really well done in knowing, actually.
Oh yeah,
Oh, right.
and that's a movie that
Yeah.
it's like
Not a fan.
you want to call it out on how bad that Nicolas Cage performance is
Yeah.
and all the weird things that happen.
But you're like interested.
But
like,
it's also
ooh, what's
equally
the next disaster?
intriguing. Yes,
Like, what's the next step? Oh, it's like a predicted thing from this long ago.
Why is Ezekiel an alien?
It's
That's
such a
the part
weird
that
movie.
see
It's
the
such a
payoff.
weird
The
movie.
payoff in that movie is what threw it. I think that was
it's-
that was
But also the destruction of the Earth is cool.
It was like, someone makes a Hail Mary pass and then like the person like catches it but drops it.
I remember that scene, and not to get off track too much, but that scene in Knowing with the plane was so cool for me because it was like this. It was a one-take shot before one-take shots were viewed as cool or impressive, where you see Nicholas. It's raining. The cars stop. Nicolas Cage gets out. He's like, "What's going on here?" And suddenly you hear the sound of the plane, and it passes over and crashes right there. And the shot does not break. It shows Nicolas Cage walking into the wreckage, seeing all the people burning,
helping people, but it's also kind of traumatic, and he's in shock too.
Yeah,
right.
There it is. Are we ready
to rumble?
David, give us that call to action.
Hey, everybody. We are a Franchise Killer Podcast, and if you enjoy listening to us, I suggest that you get on your phone right now and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Or, if you're more of a visual person, we have an Instagram where I am constantly posting our stuff and every now and again some fun factoids. Reese is on Twitter, and we are keeping up to date with all of our YouTube episodes. So, there's also that. Also, if you want to hear a thing we're doing nowadays, we are reading out a review from Apple. So if you post on there, you might hear it called out. So we have a review from Ban Wobbling, Killer Podcast Killer theme song. Behold, Franchise Killer, in all exclamation marks.
Thanks, Ben Wobbling.
So thank you,
You
Ben
could
Wobbling.
understand what we were
Thanks,
saying.
Ben.
Yeah, ban Wobbling. Honestly, if you're into Super Smash Bros. Melee, you should ban Wobbling. I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you again. And we do have an awesome theme song. You probably heard it when we started it. It's pretty new, so thank you.
Yeah, who did that theme song?
James Caldwell and Ben Dubois.
And it's
We need to
cooler
call them
than
out.
all of us.
We need to call them out more often.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Thank you, James and Ben.
Let's get into that story, guys.
In 2009, American geologist Adrian Hemsley visits astrophysicist Satnam Trutani in India and learns that an exotic new type of neutrinos from a huge solar flare are heating the Earth's core. Hot. In Washington, D.C., Helmsley presents his information to White House Chief of Staff Carl Anheuser, who brings him to meet U.S. President Thomas Wilson, also known as Danny Glover. In 2010, Wilson and other world leaders begin a secret project to ensure humanity's survival. China and the G8 nations begin building 9 arks, each capable of carrying 100,000 people in the Himalayas near Chongming, Tibet. Nima, a Buddhist monk, is evacuated, and his brother Tenzin joins the Ark project. Funding is raised by secretly selling tickets to the rich and famous for $1 billion per person. By 2011, valuable art is moved to the Arks, but art expert and first daughter Laura Wilson is told it is being sent to the Alps for preservation. In 2012, struggling Manhattan Beach, California-based science fiction writer Jackson Curtis is a chauffeur for Russian billionaire Yuri Karpov. Can we just talk about that setup?
Oh, we'll talk about
holy
it.
cow. Jackson's former wife, Kate, and their children, Noah and Lily, live with Kate's boyfriend, plastic surgeon and amateur pilot Gordon Silberman.
Plastic surgeon and amateur pilot.
Did you say his name like it is?
Oh, yeah, hold on. Chad Silberman.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, man.
He's actually not that bad.
He's not.
though.
No,
At
comes
first,
around.
I didn't know who you were talking about, and then
I'll just say this movie
Now I
has a
get it.
weird way of flip-flopping on its characters
yeah,
where
it does.
at one point they're really stupid and douchey and then at the
he
next
was
they're personable.
such a sleaze
Yeah.
bag.
He started off bad.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
We'll get into it. Jackson takes Noah and Lily camping in Yellowstone National Park. When they enter an area fenced off by the United States Army, they are caught and brought to Adrian, who is studying the geology of the area and has read Jackson's books. Who would have thought? After being released, they meet conspiracy theorist Charlie Frost, who hosts a radio show from the park about the end of the world. That night, after the military evacuates Yellowstone, Charlie shows Jackson his video of
Junior?
Charlie shows Jackson his video of Charles Hapgood's theory that polar shift and the Mesoamerican long count calendar predict a 2012 phenomenon in the end of the world. Whoa. Charlie reveals that anyone attempting to inform the public was or will be killed. After Jackson and his children return home, the sudden departure of Karpov makes Jackson realize that Charlie was right, and he rents a Cessna 340A. That's important.
Oh, that is so specific.
Wow.
That reminds me of that other episode we did where it like called out the specific helicopter.
Or
Remember?
sometimes it was the guns, like they specified what kind of gun it was.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Also,
Wow.
can I just specify? I don't think he actually rents anything. I think he just steals the guy's
Yeah,
RV.
I'm pretty sure he just
Yeah,
steals it.
yeah.
It's Wikipedia.
But
Whatever.
Well, I was gonna say this gives props to whoever wrote this for the.
Yes, they know their RVs.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
there
he
you go.
wasn't looking close enough to realize he didn't rent it. He literally stole it from a guy. Charlie was
Wikipedia
right,
guy.
and he rents a Cessna 340A at Santa Monica Airport to rescue his family. As the Earth crust displacement begins, causing a 10.9 magnitude earthquake, Jackson races to get his family and manages to get them to the airport. Gordon is convinced to fly the rented plane, despite his protests of having no experience with this particular plane, but he manages to get everyone in the flight just in time as much of the West Coast sinks into the Pacific Ocean.
So we start off on Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, the geologist Adrian Helmsley, and his buddy, what's his name? They've discovered some odd happenings beneath
Solar flares?
But he takes them down to that area, and they're like,
Yeah.
this is not good.
I was
Water's boiling down
I was
here,
very
guys.
confused about what that location even was. I don't know if that was like
I do have an answer for you. It's science.
Science.
Science
I'm blinded by it.
and bad omens.
So may I
yeah.
interrupt
go
for a
ahead.
moment?
Oh yes, please.
David.
I am the producer by night, but my day job is as a geologist. So I like to show this movie to students because it's entertaining, and I got into geology because of disasters. So it's a great movie. But you've just hit on one of the problems with it. There are some accuracy issues throughout this movie.
Wait, this movie has problems?
Yeah, so that Indian thing there, it was a copper mine.
Uh-huh.
And they claim that it's 10,000 feet deep. So you convert feet to miles, that's about 2 miles deep. Okay?
Pretty deep.
Sure.
And then they go to that, your pit to hell or whatever with the boiling water, and they say this goes down 6,000 more feet, and it's boiling, thus the conclusion that the Earth's core is melting and heating up and all of that. So anybody care to guess how far down the Earth's core is?
Much
farther
further
than
down.
This movie might make you think it's 3 miles down, but it's actually 1,800 miles down. And there are no wells that deep.
No.
No one's reached the Earth's core yet?
No.
Well, except in that movie.
the core.
Yes.
With Stanley Tucci.
That's
So-
a crazy movie, by
So
the way.
if it's boiling that high up, that means it's really bad.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, there are problems.
Science.
So moving on from that scene, we're introduced to John Cusack's character, which aren't names of characters relevant in this whatsoever? Because I didn't latch on to anybody's name at all in this
I
movie.
didn't. I was
I-
like, oh, that's John
I
Cusack.
latched onto Greg.
His name's Jackson, apparently, which
Yeah. I only know that because his son is always like, Jackson,
the,
when he's
the,
mad at him.
the only one that stuck out to me is Yuri.
Yep.
Yuri.
Because it's
Yuri.
a
But
classic
that's-
Russian name.
Yeah, that's the most obvious Russian name. And
We
it's
actually know a
Irina
Russian
and
named Yuri.
Yuri.
Yeah.
Yep.
The male is Yuri. The
And all their
female is
arenas
Irina.
are evil. So you basically have the ending of a movie if you know.
I think a movie like this needs to just throw some. It needs to just really run with it and throw some oddball names out there for its characters,
Yeah.
Like Oleg.
Oleg. Well, I don't know. That might be common in Russian.
It is. It is.
Truly.
It's actually pretty common. Name.
Let's go Grigorovich.
Grigorovich. That's the most stereotypical.
Dmitrinov.
Like that.
Dmitrinov?
Dimitri.
Well, Reese combined two Russian names.
these
so
are-
I combined two Russian names.
Grigorovich is an actual name.
That's Gregory and something-ovich.
These
and
are
he
the
combined
names that
them.
Americans think Russians
we
have.
don't know Russia.
Like this guy should be named, or our main guy should be named like Chip Hazard. Like this. What?
Actually, that's a very American name.
I think
Chip
I took
Hazard.
that. I think I took
Chip
that from
Hazard.
Small
That
Soldiers.
sounds like a
yeah.
weatherman name.
Chip Hazard.
And
I'm
here you
Chip
have me,
Hazard, and this
Chip
is the
Hazard.
local weather.
Honestly, well then you'd have to switch the RV in this movie for like a Camaro 69, and he'd like.
Or a Panzer.
Oh, I was thinking more of Dukes of Hazzard, but
Oh,
Oh.
gotcha.
Yeah, but he's a
Fair
failed. Jackson's a failed author, divorced, works for a limo company, yada yada yada.
He sucks.
Fast forward, we're at an earthquake. I'm just kidding.
I mean,
we are pretty much.
Pretty much.
He's picking up the kids, gonna take them to Yellowstone.
Right.
For a
breaking some
trip.
rules, by the way.
Yeah. We also have. We also see Amanda Peet. She's with her. I don't think they're married, but they're at least together. I think he's boyfriend. He's the surgeon / amateur
Pilot.
What's his name? I
Greg.
forget. No,
Chad.
his in the movie he plays. Oh yeah. Tom McCarthy as
Okay.
Gordon Silberman. Yeah, but there's a little bit of awkwardness there, and then earthquake stuff happens. It happens in that moment, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
So they show up to Yellowstone, climb over a fence that they're not supposed to. They go to where they're supposed to see something.
Yeah.
They don't see it, and then all of a sudden the U.S. Army arrives and takes them to whatever.
Well,
So,
Yeah, that's
so,
true. Yeah, you're right.
So
You're right.
maybe I imagine you wouldn't be able to not see signs of this should this be on the brink of happening.
Oh, they probably did, man. It's all an inside job.
Sir.
It's my understanding that Yellowstone, when it's about to go off, it becomes more bulbous.
Yeah, there would be inflation of the magma chamber underneath Yellowstone when it gets ready to erupt.
So in other words, there are some major signs that people wouldn't really be able to miss.
But Yellowstone's
That would-
so big, man. Maybe it's just like all the inflation's under the ground or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
but also this is an Emmerich
it
thing
is, but
where we've come to know everything is accelerated.
Yeah.
Where day after tomorrow, it's like, Ice Age happens in 3 days or something.
Right now.
Yellowstone blows tomorrow, even though no build up or whatever. You see like the build up right before it blows. You see it start to, get bigger, but whatever. We're not even at that.
I was going to say, we're
explosion
not
yet.
even at the explosion.
Yeah, they get apprehended. We also, I think, have an encounter with Woody Harrelson at this point.
the only good character.
Well, he's the only one that knows exactly the movie that he's in. Like everyone should be acting at this level of over the top.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I just love Woody Harrelson.
Yeah. That said, though, I don't think John Cusack is bad in this, or
No. He
anyone's
isn't. He
like
isn't.
when I isolated any performance in this movie, they're doing fine.
They
like I'm
are.
not like
No bad
yeah,
actors in
like
this.
it's like they're. But the only problem is they're taking it really seriously.
I mean, there's some bad actors. You just meet them in the second half.
For me, the problem is in the writing. Like, moments, it's good. Other moments, it's just kind of throwing in cliches to fill plot points, you know? Like, for instance, one of the things that makes me laugh the most is the reason that they divorced in the first place was that, oh, you were just, like, on your... You were on your computer working on your books too much. And I'm like, you mean working? He was working too much?
And the
That does
funny thing
happen.
Like,
about
you,
that,
you guys live in California. Like,
the funny thing about that is at the end, she's like really enjoying his book. Like,
yeah, no,
But it's
like
okay because
there's
her other boyfriend died.
Well,
No,
did
the
you
thing
notice? Oh, sorry.
the thing is, like, I could understand there being a rift,
Lol.
anyway,
Titanic.
between the two, but it just feels so shallow
Yeah.
the way that it was contrived, where I think a movie that really does kind of hit on the stress of a writer in their relationship would be Sinister.
yeah,
Like, Sinister really hits that, but I don't think that's the purpose of this movie even. So it's just kind of like, hey, we have to have a reason why they divorced. Here it is. It does not land for me. I'm just like, apart from that, he's a pretty decent guy. This could have been, resolved with just a good conversation. Like, why is this the reason they completely split in the first place?
So the whole thing with this movie is that it's so bombastic with what's happening around them, but the interpersonal characters, I would say, are actually more fleshed out and work well together in a more realistic way than I see in other movies. And it's really weird because it doesn't match.
They have some weird little writing character quirks. That one of them being the fact that the moment Gordon dies, she's like, "Oh darn!"
Hold on, we'll get to that part. Yes, I agree.
She goes that far.
She doesn't. She's like, "Oh no!
Oh no! Well,
oh no! I
guess I got my
pick."
ex-husband.
No, but leading up to that, I think that the interpersonal relationship with her, with the kids, everybody together, it feels pretty real. Like, and there's a lot of circumstances.
I don't think
like
so.
That.
I don't find it
Okay.
very real. I think it's just kind of cheesy.
It's
Cheesy's fine.
I think this movie is trying to straddle the line between being a San Andreas and a Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
San Andreas, like, this movie's almost asking to have like a big action star in the middle of it,
Right.
But they got John Cusack, and I am not saying Day After Tomorrow is not over the top. It definitely
Right.
is, but it treats the disaster with a level of seriousness that feels appropriate.
Right.
Whereas this one's trying to, and San Andreas feels like, yeah, there's the illusion of danger, but The Rock
Right.
makes you feel like, oh, everyone's gonna be fine.
Anyone
it's like-
around the rock will survive.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because while we were watching it, didn't the kind of collapse where they were living happen during the part that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, they come.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is when they come back.
So,
Yeah.
while David and I were watching it, I remember telling him, "Oh, this is kind of like a theme park ride."
It was.
Yeah.
Like you're driving in this limo, and I could just imagine being at a place like Universal Studios where they have like certain special effects where you're in this vehicle and they're just kind of like driving through buildings
Yeah.
and oh no, it's about to collapse, you have to reverse or
Get
whatever.
out of there.
Yeah, get out of there. Where
And
you
things
you know
conveniently don't
you know
fall on you.
everything's gonna be fine, but there's kind of like this injected suspense, to the ride.
Although
But-
in this circumstance, the fact that we have such crazy CGI, kind of like almost you're just so encapsulated.
Well, I think
Do you know how good of
No,
do you know
no.
how good of a pilot you'd have to be able to dodge falling debris
It was
and
an
like
accident.
go under an actively falling tower?
Okay, so
and
let's just get into it. Let's talk
We're
about the
going
first
ahead.
disaster sequence,
Sorry.
and I do want to frame this, and I'm gonna try to stay consistent. And there's a chance I'll forget, so help remind me.
It's kinda
I
hard
want
with
to
this film.
rank the impressiveness of these disasters and have a comprehensive list of best to worst out of this movie. Okay, so we're starting with our earthquake disaster, and I also do want to do an accuracy test, and the producer can decide to decline if he wants. But we'll break down some of these disasters, and I'm gonna ask him like, "Hey, how accurate is this?"
They might not be accurate at all. None of them.
Yeah.
Well, who knows?
So let's start with this earthquake sequence. So everyone jumps in the limo. Clearly, there's a massive earthquake happening. It's in an area where earthquakes generally happen, but this one is on another level. So they're getting out of there, which I was watching a video, and apparently that's never what you should do. You should just find a good enclosed space and just...
No, I'll run it.
Or you need to like go under the table or do something like
Right.
that. But in this case, it was the right call because you're in the movie 2012, and the earth will literally fall into itself.
Yeah.
But for me, I really thought this was a well-executed action sequence.
Oh, it was.
Like, not realistic, but the effects are really good. There's a lot of inventive imagery. They really play around with a lot of fun perspectives as you're following this limo through the city that's being destroyed around it. And it's one of those things where you just have to check your brain at the door and just accept how dumb this movie is to enjoy it. But I think it's a really effective sequence, and the CGI people had a lot of fun with it, I feel like. So that's
Yeah.
where I stand with it.
Are we not giving it a number score? Or?
Oh, we're just going to rank it.
Yeah.
Like, by the end.
Like,
So.
oh, this one's
By
the
the end,
best.
like,
this
this
one's
is-
second place, third.
He's
fourth.
just mentioning this is one of them
Okay.
that will
Yeah.
be in the
Okay.
ranking.
How do y'all feel about the big earthquake sequence? The Roland Emmerich being like, yes, I do disaster movies. Here's the first disaster.
I find this one of the more memorable ones, and maybe it's because it's the first one, but it does seem like it's harder to kind of glaze it over, while you're watching the disaster, because it jumps back and forth between you being in the point of view of the riders of the car, basically. So I remember a lot of the big moments that happen
Yeah.
in it.
But then we get to see those old ladies driving a car and
Yeah.
like, hold on to those eggs, dearie.
And then bam. Like,
they die.
goodbye, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
That scene, though, where the takeoff scene,
Yeah.
where the ground just drops out below them, it's such a
Yeah.
It is a neat
cool
idea.
looking scene. Like, the idea that they're just building up steam and everything is just crumbling beneath them.
Right.
And once it finally completely gives way, I love the attention to detail on the physics of the plane as it just, like, drops, but then, like lifts back up.
Right.
It's cool. I was like, I want to be in the theater watching this scene. Like, not this whole movie, but I want to be in the theater and watch this scene.
Well,
Right.
it's fascinating looking at the actual CGI behind the scenes kind of stuff, and that is almost all CGI. I mean, they have like a fake car and a blue screen.
Right.
Yeah. Here's my problem with disaster movies these days. Even though it's like the whole world's ending, essentially, I never feel the danger.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm like, because the main characters, they're going to make it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
know.
Day After Tomorrow
Yeah.
was the last one.
Yeah, Day After Tomorrow is great. I
Right.
actually think that's a really good movie. Well, maybe I have to go back. I don't know.
No,
I haven't
it's
seen
good.
it
It's
since, like-
good.
I haven't seen it since a long time ago, but it had the most interesting take to
This-
me on an apocalyptic world-ending scenario.
This movie lulls you into a sense of security because there are the main characters, the protagonists, that you actually do kind of care for, and they have plot armor.
Yep.
And then it's almost like in the writing of this film, they delineated which are the ones you're actually rooting for and which you kind of find scumbags. Like you're like, I'm fine if they die. And so you don't feel the threat of them dying because you're fine either way. Like,
Yeah,
if they
exactly.
die, it's fine. If they don't, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. And that just comes about with things they say and do. The other part is the injection of humor into this movie. Like, there are so many moments that feel like it was a
Yeah.
comedic director that had to do a disaster film.
And
you
it's
know?
like, pick a tone.
Yeah.
Like,
The tone is very...
And the sad thing is
Scattered.
the humor's not great
Yeah.
either. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's kind of really half-assed.
Well, like there would be a moment where it's one example is just that close up of the chicken. There's a scene where a chicken is about to get decapitated, but you have this close up of the chicken going.
Like, it does a double
you're
take,
like, what?
like it looks at the audience,
I know,
and then
right?
they kill it.
Right?
It's like, why was that
what is
there?
happening?
I don't know.
Anyway, producer, accuracy level on the earthquake here. What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely over the top with the fissures and the cracks and all that stuff. That's not going to happen.
Okay. Okay, so they escape the earthquake, get in the plane. Amateur pilot does pretty good. They make their way to Yellowstone, which that's a pretty long flight.
No, they're coming from California to Montana.
I mean,
That's
it's
not
still
like
a
that
pretty
far.
long flight.
I'd say like
in,
Montana and
Wyoming,
Idaho.
I thought.
It's in all three.
Really?
Yeah, it's like it kind of intersects with four different states.
It's at least
Dang.
three. It's
Yeah.
Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming.
Yellowstone's big, or is it,
is.
just at
It's
that
pretty.
point?
It's
Big.
pretty big, but
Okay.
it's also in a very specific location that
Happens to be at
happens
the
to be
intersection of those
overlapping.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, they team up with Woody Harrelson, whose name is, let me find it. Charlie Frost. Like, why is that his name? Why-
That is a
Like,
weird
He
name.
does not look like Charlie Frost. But I feel like they just threw names in a blender.
Like a
and
name
just, like-
generator?
yeah. Just like, okay, that's his name, Charlie Frost. Okay, Bob, what's his name?
Isn't Charlie kind of a British name?
It's
Charlie.
I don't know,
Charlie's a very-
everyone
I'm
uses
pretty sure it's
Charlie.
Okay, I mean, I don't really know any Americans named Charlie, but I could be wrong.
That feels like blind speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah. well, no, because I've only
Charlie bit
met
me.
British Charlies. I've never
You've
met a
met?
a
A British Charlie.
yeah.
I've met a non-British Charlie at some point in my life.
Huh? Are you sure they're not British or just have dropped the
Who
accent?
knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Well, you don't have to belittle me like that.
I'm not belittling.
No, it's just a fun
was
conversation.
belittling. Yeah.
The Yellowstone goes off. They get the maps. We have our second disaster here: the Yellowstone volcano explosion. Again, I think this is just visually extremely impressive. The pyroclastic cloud
Yeah.
looks amazing, even though I know those people would be completely obliterated.
Oh yeah.
Incinerated immediately.
It's still just it. Roland Emmerich knows how to stage a effective disaster sequence,
Right.
and just seeing all these things just get destroyed before our eyes, and seeing the lava balls or whatever they're called strike the earth and strike the RV or the camper as they're trying to make that escape. It's another thrilling sequence that at this point I think back then when I was watching it in the theater I was like on board with this movie. In at least in terms of how impressive the sequences were.
Right.
What did y'all think?
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
To me, it was the most enjoyable one because you got Woody Harrelson like cheering as
yeah.
he's engulfed in
beautiful,
flame
man.
or whatever.
I
think I'll stay.
Yeah,
I'm a little disappointed he didn't say Vancouver, this is it. But I mean, otherwise, I think that it was a fun watch.
I think
Yeah.
to me this is the best disaster of the ones we see.
Yeah.
It's
interesting.
first or second for me.
I mean, as far as the spectacle of it all, the blinding
Yeah.
light, the mushroom cloud, that is memorable. But because it doesn't feel realistic,
I just none of them feel realistic to me.
I don't know. The earthquake one is stupid as it, or anything with the water. Actually, I could imagine. You know, it's like,
Actually, I think the earthquake. I think I enjoyed the earthquake slightly more. But producer accuracy, give it to us.
explosion of a Yellowstone. How accurate was it?
So we're watching the movie in the background, and we just got through the big earthquake scene in L.A. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to wait until I see it again just to refresh my memory, and then maybe I'll give you a comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do the ranking real quick. We've had the volcano, and we've had the earthquake. Who votes earthquake above? Okay, we got 1, 2. I'll vote earthquake.
Earthquake is better.
Let's go earthquake.
Y'all are lame.
I
As
don't
far
know.
as CGI
I think-
goes, it was a lot more work.
I think there's something a little more novel about the earthquake than this one. I like the sequence, but unfortunately for me, I feel like the disaster moments are sort of just gonna go down as I watch the movie because it's like when you see one, you've seen them all
Yeah,
basically.
but he throws them all in there.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's a thrilling sequence. But I come back to that scene that we're watching literally right now, where the ground gives way below the plane. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, that was so cool. I think that's what clenches it for me.
Right.
I can't even. I'm not a geologist. Well, I'm not a geologist,
Clearly.
obviously, but I can't even imagine thinking that there would be that much space just hollowed out.
Oh right,
below
beneath you.
them. It just makes zero sense to me.
who cares?
We didn't notice all this hollow space beneath Los Angeles.
But who cares?
No, it's a fault line and it's all moving or something.
Yeah, at like
Everything has
2,000
been-
miles an hour.
Everything beneath the Earth's crust has been liquefied into just molten.
Instantly. And no one noticed.
No, well,
No
there were a
one
couple
noticed.
people noticed, and for
Okay.
some reason,
They
Yeah.
they
one else
kept it
did.
to themselves.
Okay, and I think we got caught up with ourselves, so I think it is time for you to continue the story,
Yeah.
David.
wow. All right.
I mean, a lot of this is just spectacular CGI sequences, so
Yeah.
it's hard to keep it organized.
All right. Adrian, Carl, and Laura fly to the Arks on Air Force One. President Wilson elects to remain in Washington, D.C. to address the nation while billions of people die in earthquakes and mega tsunamis worldwide, including himself and the vice president who is killed in the ash cloud. With the president line of succession broken, Carl assumes the position of acting commander-in-chief. When Adrian and Laura are surprised to see mostly wealthy people boarding the arks, Carl explains that they sold tickets to pay for the cost of the construction, but most of them won't get on the arks. As Jackson's group reaches China, their plane runs out of fuel. Sasha continues flying the plane as the others escape in a Bentley Continental Flying Spur stored in the cargo hold. A Bentley Continental Flying Spur stored in the cargo hold. Sasha is killed when the plane slides off a cliff. The others are spotted by Chinese Air Force helicopters. Yuri and his sons, who have tickets, are brought to the arks, but the Curtis family, with Tamara and Gordon, are abandoned. They are picked up by Nima and brought to the arks with his grandparents. With Tenzin's help, they stow away on Ark 4, where the U.S. contingent is located. While welding the door closed, Tenzin is injured and Gordon is crushed to death by the gears. Poor Gordon. An impact driver gets lodged in the gears, jamming them and keeping a boarding gate open, which prevents the ship's engines from starting. A large mega tsunami is headed for the ark site, and Carl orders the loading gates be closed while most people haven't boarded. Adrian begs the captain and the other arks not to begin the future of humanity with such a cruel act. The loading gates are opened, and Yuri falls into a deep canyon as he pushes his sons into one of the arks. The wave breaches the Himalayas, and the back of the ark fills with water and is set adrift, heading for impact with the north face of Mount Everest, without the engines needed to avoid a fatal collision. Adrian rushes towards the hydraulic chamber to fix the gears, but the flooded doors have closed, trapping the stowaways and drowning Tamara. Jackson hears Adrian say the gears must be cleared, but the chamber is flooded, so it is a suicide mission. Jackson kisses his family goodbye, takes a deep breath, and swims to clear the gears. Noah seeks off and follows him, and together they dislodge the tool. Good job, Noah. The crew regains control of the ark before it strikes Mount Everest. Noah makes it back safely, followed by Jackson. 1 year, 1 month, and 27 days later, the waters are receding. The arks approach the Capes of Good Hope, where the Drakensberg Mountains have now become the highest mountain range on Earth, after the continent of Africa has risen above the waters for some reason. Adrian and Laura begin a relationship, while Jackson and Kate rekindle their romance and reunite their family.
Good for them. The line in there with where Yuri pushes his sons onto the ark, the way that's delivered makes it sound like he pushes them to their death.
It did.
But he actually saves them. He saves their life at his own sacrifice.
Yes, although
I love the layers to that character. It's so complicated. So,
I know, right?
he's an asshole.
Like understood. I think that, well, honestly, he's very clearly not a good guy, and they paint them in the wrong light, but I think everyone, bad or good, has people that they care about.
Yeah.
You know, this movie gives me the impression that they don't really know how to write women well either.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and they're so good at the men too.
Amanda Peet, she's got a lot going on in her life.
Every single female that's on this is very like it. You can tell that there's an effort to try and understand their problems, but it's
you
very
didn't like
vague.
that scene when the Yuri's girl was like, "I liked my body before the operation."
Oh
he
yeah,
did
I
not
know. Oh my gosh.
appreciate me. I know that was a perfect Russian accent.
Oh, it sounded just like her.
Yeah. Again, with this whole Jackson and Kate relationship thing, I cringed so hard in that scene where they're sitting in the car together and he's asking her, like, do you love him? This new boyfriend that he has. And she says, enough. I'm like,
I love that
Who
this
wants
guy,
to hear that?
I love that this guy, her boyfriend's legacy is that he dies, no one cares about him, and that he was loved enough.
Oh my gosh. Like, this is so dumb.
Wait, honestly, the person who probably loved him the most was the son.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the son was the one that liked him the most. Anyway,
But like, come on, this guy was not great.
This whole
He was actually not
fine.
bad.
Only after they redeemed him in the beginning, he was just like fondling
So-
her in the shop.
no,
Yeah,
okay.
that was
Yeah.
weird.
Yes,
And
no,
like
Matt.
saying,
this-
why did you date him for
Let's
so
have babies.
long? This
Okay,
guy that has
but-
no problem.
But the moment he gets on the plane and he decides
Yeah.
to like, okay, he's piloting this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's true.
He has a character turn.
he does.
where he does not do anything that's.
Yeah.
but
like,
they did
gross.
that. They did that with everybody.
I think there was something I liked about it where that this situation sort of broke down the barriers for a moment where
Yeah,
it's like,
it's true.
oh, we're just people trying to survive. Like romantic interests don't have, they don't apply. And
Yeah.
I like that. I actually like that. I like this group of 3 adults trying to just protect the children
Yeah.
and help each other. But then later they try to incorporate this whole love triangle thing again, which is to me just more distracting than it is helpful. Like
Yeah.
I'm over it. I don't care about how much his son likes his new mom's boyfriend. Like,
Well, he clearly saw Titanic and was like, "That's a disaster movie. What does that have? It's got a little sprinkle of romance
A little
and
sprinkle
a
of
little
romance.
sprinkle of love triangle."
I
I don't know.
The thing is, like, speaking of Titanic, it definitely goes in a similar direction where these arcs that we discover are kind of battling a similar social issue where, oh yeah, the rich have these nice rooms with, silverware and all the accommodations, and
You
All
could fit
this
10
room.
people in
you,
this
you
room.
have this conversation where it's like, hey, more people can fit in this. Like, why are we only leaving it for the rich or the people that can afford it? Yeah.
Yeah.
so they can be comfortable.
I think the thing I like about this movie is that there are so many references to other, disaster films, basically. Like,
Yeah.
it's trying to incorporate all of them at once,
Like
which
you
is
caught
very
Titanic,
ambitious.
and what was the other big one? Oh, Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws. Yeah. So it's and I would even say like Dante's Peak a little bit, like with the Yellowstone issue. But yeah, so it's fun in that way. I would much rather this just be a fun film. But when they try to add this heartwarming aspect, it really throws me off because it's not they don't have the time to flesh it out.
Yeah.
Like there's so much going into this movie already.
I get the conflict that happened with this script or whatever happened, where it was like, we have to have something that's grounded and
Right.
relatable, something human. And they're like, oh, what's more human than like a romance?
Yeah. Or like, oh yeah,
or,
people that are divorced but still have kind of like feelings for
Well,
each other.
honestly, the saddest and most emotionally connecting moment was, I think anyway, between Adrian Helmsley and his dad, where he's on the ship, as a jazz pianist or
Yeah,
whatever.
and we didn't even talk about
That was
exactly.
sad, dude.
that. Yeah.
It was sad. And that was the most believable interaction, actually.
We also haven't talked about Danny Glover as president at all either.
yeah.
So good.
I mean, I wouldn't say
it's
so good, but
it's
like,
just kind of what you expect.
like
yeah.
an
Okay,
inspired
sorry.
casting choice. I'll say
Look,
that.
no, that's kind of what I mean. I
Yeah.
think that Danny Glover is he
Looks
oozes
presidential. I'll say that.
charisma.
Yeah.
You're right. The movie itself, it doesn't really like lean into it, but he's good.
This movie does have a kind of an example of a little bit I don't know if you guys feel this way, but sort of American propaganda where it's like, yeah, at the core of America, the president is like
He would
a
sacrifice
go
himself.
down with the ship kind of guy,
Yep.
and all of it is about honor and trying to uphold that. And I don't know if it'll exactly
don't see
play
that
out that way,
happening.
but it definitely feels like, yeah, America,
Yeah, that's what our president
That's
would
what
do.
our president would do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. he wouldn't go into those arcs. He would stay at the White House.
Speaking of which, one of the I don't know, the one of the characters that irritates me the most is his daughter. And I think it's mostly because she's like
Tandy Newton's character.
yeah, I don't know, the way she's written is just so silly to me.
I'm here for my MRS
she
degree.
breaks into her father's, Oval Office just to be like, this guy, like who's taking care of like artwork, he's gone missing. I think like there's something wrong. It's all over the headlines. I'm interrupting a really important important meeting. I don't know. There's something just very, very
I thought she got better when she mixed up with
Adrian
Chiwetel
Hemsley.
Ejiofor. Like they have a kind of decent chemistry. I feel like.
They do, but again, it's like it almost seems like her character was built to be a love interest for him for no reason.
Oh yeah, it's purely that she was built to be a love interest. There's nothing really like real about her.
No, you are right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the mold that these disaster movies seem to be taking.
And the thing is, that's my criticism, but then at the same time, I don't know if it should be a criticism because it's just an action movie with disasters happening.
Another one of my problems is like this movie's loading its plate up too big. Like it's introducing too many characters. Like you are showing the end, like 2012, the end of the world. It's very disaster focused, and yet you're introducing all these characters and relationships that, based off all these like the amount of characters you're introducing, there's no way you can make all of those come to a satisfying conclusion.
Right.
Like we don't need this. Like you cut her character out, keep Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, because I kind of was interested in what he was doing. Like I don't know. It's just.
I think some of the writing as far as like these personal relationships is just very. It's very generic, and even when you said like a lot of the character names just don't feel very inspired either. It's like there was a name generator. It feels like there's a plot generator too. Like they're just let's just like run this random machine and then figure out what our basic plot should be. But,
at least for the plot, it is very simple.
Yeah.
It is like, okay, A to B to C and done. My only problem with the plot is that John Cusack is in the middle of the action always. Like he just happens to like.
How is he related to this event?
Yeah, no, in no way.
Yeah,
like,
that's
he just
the
happens
thing.
to be a part of the biggest earthquake. Then he goes to the biggest volcano,
And he somehow makes it
goes to
You know
away.
what would have been cool was if you had his sequence done in the beginning, and then all these other characters in different parts of the world, you got to see how they handled their natural
like
disaster.
almost do a World War Z book type thing.
And then by the
where-
end, you can have that culmination when they all kind of interact with each other.
At the
because then
arcs
it's
or whatever,
then you get the implied effect that we're just learning the story of the survivors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and World War Z is the first thing that came to mind when I watched this, as far as like
The
our
scope
main
and ambition of
character-
it.
Yeah, on the main character just somehow stumbling his way.
Yes, you're right.
Into survival.
Yeah.
Into the
Right.
next scene.
Brad
You're
Pitt
just
is
like,
literally
what?
like you almost think like you're the problem.
Yeah.
Like, you went to this place and then
You're
this
bringing
happened.
bad luck.
Like
Yeah.
all right, we need to do a little cleanup on a few of the disasters that we've skipped over. We had the Kennedy.
Well, hold on. We should go back to the Yellowstone now that it's passed on screen.
Well, I mean, we saw it.
Our
discussed
geologist-
it,
Our
though.
geologist is
He already
involved now.
talked about it.
No,
Do
we
you
Can
wanna-
tell us
No,
how
I didn't.
accurate it
Do you
is.
want to come back to Yellowstone?
He's smiling.
Tell us how real.
So accurate, right?
this
How
is.
accurate
How-
was it?
Well, the volcanic bombs looked good,
Uh-huh.
and the ash cloud looked good. The big problem was it would have happened a lot faster than that. So
Right.
yeah.
Oh, really?
obviously they
Oh,
would
yeah.
have, they would have
Instantly.
never had time to escape
Yeah.
from as close as they were. So you wouldn't be able to outrun a pyroclastic cloud. You wouldn't be able to keep in front of collapsing ground and all that. So
And-
not terribly realistic.
And pyroclastic clouds, how, just like ballpark, how fast are they?
Well, there's pyroclastic flows, and there are these little things called a nuée ardente, which is kind of like a glowing flame thing. That's sort of what wiped out everybody at Pompeii.
Mm-hmm.
And those move potentially at hundreds of miles an hour.
Hundreds?
Don't they boil your brain before?
Like
Yeah.
the heat from a distance would
Right.
be. Oh,
It's so metal.
it's so metal, says Reese.
It does feel like a death clock.
Like if you can
scene.
see it, your
Yeah.
brain's probably melted.
Okay,
Momentarily.
so
But
Wait,
but
wait,
it's at least within the realm of possibility that Yellowstone could erupt. I mean,
Right.
it's the big mega eruptions from Yellowstone have occurred on about 700,000 year interval, 2.1 million, 1.4 million, 0.6 million. So we're due.
we're
Yeah.
about to.
Well,
Wait, are
this
we already
is-
past due?
Not
So-
quite past due, but
So
it could happen.
we're within that range of like a couple of 100,000 years where it can go off.
Right.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
like that.
Any day now.
And another thing that they don't really touch on in this, I guess, is just how loud eruptions would be.
Wow, yeah.
I remember
I
reading
didn't
the story
even think about that.
in Latin class about Pompeii, and there's this person who wrote down it was an island near the eruption, and they like from afar they were observing it, and it erupted, and the noise carried, and like their eardrums ruptured from that far
gosh.
away.
Yeah.
So
A lot of noise.
So a aircraft carrier kills the president.
I thought that was really cool.
JFK killed Danny Glover.
It was funny. I was watching the behind the scenes, and it was Roland Emmerich, Roland Emmerich, who sounds very much like Arnold Schwarzenegger. By the way, when you actually watch like behind the scenes,
Yeah, I've seen.
he's like, I watched I thought it would be cool if Kennedy came back to the White House and killed the president. And like that was like the logic behind
It did. So the weird thing is, while I was watching it, I was like, this feels like a weird kind of message that's being
But I don't
put
know what
here.
that message is. You see JFK's name
Yeah,
plastered
yeah.
in this wall of water. You're like,
There's
I
nothing
guess that's
deeper to that. It is
Yeah, just then,
straight
I
up
thought
like
it would be
that's
cool.
it. And that's something I noticed about this whole movie. It's like literally kill every important structure. Like what was it? The oh my gosh.
the place in was it Brazil?
Yes,
Yeah.
the Christ Redeemer statue gets destroyed. The that chapel or what is it? Where all the people pray
Vatican
to the
City?
Pope or whatever? Yes, The Vatican.
Where all the people
all
pray
those
to the
people
Pope.
that pray to the Pope,
Vatican
Pray
City,
to
yes.
the Pope.
the
That's how it works.
the Catholics.
That thing falls on everyone. The Kennedy aircraft carrier kills the literal president in
Yeah,
a wave.
yeah.
Like it's like this movie is asking you just not to give a crap about like what is actually possible,
Right.
And just big monuments will hit important people is what this movie is, or
Right.
big monuments will get destroyed by anything. Like that's
Yeah.
what this movie is.
But the Queen of England will survive with her puppy.
With her
their two
corgis.
Not a very good double, by the way. When they like
No,
go
it
close,
wasn't
it's like
very
I
good.
get what you're doing because she's wearing the weird little pink coat that she's always wearing, but
And she's got her corgis.
her little
Yeah.
hat on. But apart from that, yeah, whatever. Okay, so missing another disaster here. Yes, so the jazz players die.
That was sad.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's
that,
talk about that.
That was actually very sad.
They didn't need to be in this, I don't think, for plot, but I feel like that was the most emotional moment.
Yeah.
Was between the sort of head
was pretty good.
scientist and his dad.
Even
kind
though
of
they're like
mourning him.
hardly established, it was still
Yeah.
effective.
It was more effective than some of the other characters that are more established.
I think the thing that was so that really hit me was just the father's response, you know, where he's like, please, you have more important things to do. Like your mom and I have lived a full life, you know, just focus on what you're doing, you know, everything
Yeah,
will be
it was a selfless-
fine. Yeah,
selfless,
like that,
uh,
just that. And then finishing it off with like, some sort of comment about how like he was the best part of his existence.
I was
basically.
tearing up.
And,
I'm not gonna lie.
and
It
you're
was
just
emotional.
like, oh my gosh. But that's like the first real conversation you've heard in this whole movie. Like all of it
Yeah.
feels like a lot of cliche things people expect someone to say.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it was good.
But that one felt actually like it was taken from a real conversation.
And what's weird to me, I don't know if it's weird, but that actor who plays his dad, it is Blue Mankuma, which you're not going to, for some reason it's not on the IMDb page that I could find. But the other movie I recognized him from, Halloween Town 2, Calabar's Revenge as
That
Gort.
Disney movie? Something
Yes.
only you would know.
It's the sequel to Halloween Town, and it just, I mean, there are going to be people who know, but it's just such a random movie. I was like, that's the guy from Halloween Town 2. It's like,
There
there's
you go.
nothing else I've seen him in.
And David automatically loves this movie.
He's great. I love him.
All right, ranking the wave. Let's do it. So I'm going to include the ship capsizing
Yeah.
with the wave hitting the president. Where are we at here, guys? We got earthquake on the board, volcano on the board, wave. Capsize and wave.
I actually really liked this one. I thought it was cool.
Okay. Does anyone think it goes above volcano?
I do.
I think it's above volcano.
At least
we
for
got
me.
Y'all are lame.
Sorry.
Volcanoes are cool. Tsunamis are cool too, though.
I don't.
That's
I
up
like-
there.
I like it too.
Volcanoes are cool, but I just don't think that volcano was very cool.
Okay, so I'm with
maybe.
volcanoes
I don't know.
still sticking it out. That means we need a tie break. Producer, we've got 3 disasters on the board so far. We have the earthquake, we have the volcano, and we have the wave that takes out the White House. How are you ranking these disasters so far in terms of spectacle?
Well, they're all spectacles. I actually don't really remember the tsunami hitting DC so much. Of the other two, I think the Yellowstone eruption would be the most spectacular.
All right. Okay, so that's an automatic. Yellowstone stays in the second place. Earthquake at number 1.
Fine.
And the wave, the DC wave specifically, since there's another big amount of water disaster in the future.
Still to
I
come.
like water disasters.
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Let's move forward. So the Russian dudes and our main characters jump in a big old Russian plane. The guy says, "It's Russian," and we go.
It's because it's Russian or Texan.
Yeah, and the relationship here again is David. You wanted to talk about this, or
Did I?
I thought you you said you wanted to just this weird relationship that.
As far as the relationship goes, I just think it's they interject so many weird things, like Yuri with his weird girlfriend combined with her having a relationship with Yuri's pilot, Sasha.
Yeah, and then the surgeon being involved, knowing them and giving her fake boobs,
something like that.
Like that's what I kind of got from that.
Things that added to nothing in this movie.
I mean, they added something,
texture,
but it was just like weird plot contrivances to get these people to the Ark.
Yeah,
that were just like when you actually read it or think about it, doesn't make any sense.
That's exactly what it is. It's plot contrivances all the way. Yeah.
I kind of like the Sasha guy though. He kind of reminds me of the Skarsgård.
It's too
guy.
bad that he dies.
Yeah. And his heroic moment in the plane where, and this is our next disaster. There's so many in this, where they were going to make a water landing, but they actually happened to kind of make it to China.
Because China ends up moving 1,000 miles.
Something weird. Another plot contrivance. But yeah, they make the landing. Kind of cool seeing the car drive out of the back of that airplane and all the other cars kind of tumbling out after it.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but it's fun. And then the plane kind of stops there. And you think, oh, maybe Sasha's going to be all right. And then no. One thing I credit Emmerich for is that he's not afraid to kill off his characters.
Yeah.
Like this is in a lot of other movies, this guy would have survived, and he'd like run out of the plane, and it'd be this like he'd jump out as it tips over or something like that. But no, he's a dead boy. All right, let's do the ranking. We got a plane disaster on the board now. I feel like we're all putting this at number 4, but still
that's bottom, man.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that it's not great.
Well, okay, can I just say that is the most unnecessary use of CGI in this movie. It's like, you know how you could just show a plane going over the cliff? This whole thing with the pilot, Sasha, didn't need it. Just show the plane falling over a cliff. I don't need to watch this plane tumble down and explode.
I kind of liked it.
It's fine.
It was
but
satisfying.
there's a lot of things this movie is 2.5 hours, and it easily could have been an hour 45. I think.
Well, that's the scene I wouldn't take out, though. The plane literally impacting.
It didn't do anything.
It's a disaster movie. I want to see the plane blow up. No, I want to see it blow up. Like, show me the explosion.
You get all these other disasters, and you want to just add on a plane explosion.
Yes. Give it to me.
All right, you get it.
What you can take out is the little Yuri boys and all of their interactions with the other kids and all that other stuff.
I would take that out, too.
Really don't care about.
Why does Sasha need a cool death?
I like Sasha.
What did he did? Was nothing in this movie.
I don't know. I like him.
He was honorable. He's a good guy.
He sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
He's like, y'all go. I like how he's like making everyone get out of there.
He likes Yuri's big boob wife.
Yes, exactly. So then a few Chinese helicopters pass by. They're carrying giraffes and elephants and stuff like that.
Right.
They see the disaster and they're like, all right, let's see what's up here. Send a helicopter down there. Yuri's got the green card. Oh, but he did not give his girlfriend a green card because he knew about what was going on with Sasha. And so she is left with the spoils of John Cusack and his family. And they make a funny joke about, hey, you got €1 billion, blah, 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 blah. They do not.
Okay.
And so then they team up with the other people, the people who, the monks.
There you go.
I can never find words.
Look, they make their way to Noah's Ark, and then they make their way out.
Yes.
The end.
But yeah, they're taken to, well, people are kind of having this mass crusade to where everyone's discovered these arcs are, these 3 ships that are set to brave the storm of what's happening. One of these ships ends up being defective. Yuri and his little weird boys aren't able to get on because the thing is destroyed, like the ceiling collapsed in on it and it's damaged, so that there's only 2. Then Chiwetel Ejiofor has a moment of crisis where he's like, so many more people can fit on this boat, and his friend gets killed in this massive incoming, it's not even a tsunami, it's more just this big wall of ocean that's overcoming everything.
The biggest tsunami.
Yeah. So there ends up being this internal dispute in the Ark, and everyone on the outside is clamoring at all of this. Meanwhile, John Cusack and family are
sneaking their way
around. Boyfriend gets killed. I do want to talk about this moment because it's so sad in a weird way. Like, I know he's our Chad of the episode, but he becomes very not a Chad.
No, you
Like,
definitely.
I'll say he doesn't
you
quite
definitely
deserve
don't
this.
Hate him.
He's
at this point.
he's like Neil in Santa Claus.
Yeah, he's actually
He's a
shown
little worse than Neil.
real moments.
really?
Well,
Yeah.
he's shown
Better.
real moments of bravery. He's been like a crucial pilot to
All
get
right.
them to
Yeah.
where they need to go.
I'll say-
And now, well, what I want to say about this
Higher highs
sequence,
than Neil, lower lows than Neil.
what I want to say about this sequence though is it's so like like in the moment they're sad he died for like 2 seconds, and then it is just completely forgotten.
The way the scene plays out is just so funny to me because they get separated and it's just her ex with her new boyfriend. And imagine this from her perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's just waiting for them to come back and her ex comes back who's like, oh, he fell into the gears. Oh,
Yeah.
he's just gone. Sorry. Like,
Suicide mission, guys.
it's very suspicious. But
But I'm fine.
the acceleration from this point where you just kind of she does show a moment of sadness, but then afterwards it's just, oh well, he's gone, I guess, like he was deserving of more than that.
I
in my
imagine
mind.
the scar scene where like John Cusack's got his like fingernails in his
Yeah, I
hands.
know.
Where he's like,
Long
It's like this. It's like this movie is just Jackson's retelling of the events. Like now that he's survived, he's like,
yeah,
oh
I
yeah,
really
this is how
tried.
it went down.
Save me, Jackson.
I
Save
tried
me.
so hard.
what I love is once he dies too, he doesn't even say like no or anything. He
And
just
he's
like
just
kind of
like,
runs
okay.
off.
So-
No, he watches him
So-
crumple in the gears.
So the way that you can retell this, like from beginning to end, John Cusack stalks his girlfriend, or his ex-wife, saves her because how did he come across?
Yeah.
Anyway, saves her, brings her through the place with her ex-boyfriend. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But steals this guy's RV and his escape route. The guy perishes in flame.
Right.
Because of it. Goes over to flies off because this guy's a pilot. I already knew that. That's why I came this way. Flies off. Goes to what's his next destination? At this point, don't they meet the Russian guys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
something like that.
maybe he's like blackmailing them into getting onto the ship, and then he sees an opportunity to get rid of the ex-husband because now he doesn't need the pilot skills.
Yeah.
There it is. He's actually the
The
villain.
ultimate plot.
That would actually make an even more interesting movie if that were the case.
And just make the lead character a villainous, like,
Oh my gosh.
murderer.
It almost feels that way. It's
does.
almost kind of like a retelling of history from his perspective.
Like, oh no, he's dead.
Tried to save him, but he's gone.
Yeah,
that's
it's definitely
pretty
told
good.
from his perspective. There's something else happened in the gears there that we're not seeing. Talk about kind of a brutal death though for that
Yeah,
character.
I know.
Like,
He didn't deserve
literally
it.
got crushed in
Well,
the
it wasn't
gears
even
of this.
like usually at least with a character like that, you would get a heroic end, but it wasn't even really heroic. It was just him kind of falling into gears.
Yeah.
I'm
What-
surprised he died before Tibetan monk guy died.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what I think is they probably have some unreleased footage of him being like a worse guy than he was,
Oh, maybe.
and they were like he needs to die.
Yeah.
And that, but they like after the fact they probably noticed like, oh wait, he's not that bad at this point.
Right.
Well, we can't really like
I just
edit this out
remember
now. It's too late.
watching that scene again with David and going, well, that's convenient.
No, I
You
know.
like-
I know. Everyone watching this movie when that scene happened was like,
Yep.
well, that's convenient.
By the way, I actually think the best scene where John Cusack's actually showing a pretty good amount of acting or like level of emotion is when the son, and I think the son is annoying, but when he asks why he doesn't like the boyfriend,
Yeah.
like how John Cusack responds to that scene and how he acts towards his kids. I actually think the acting between the adults and the kids is really
it's
good.
pretty good.
The way they treat the
Right.
kids is like
Yeah.
that is how you would treat a kid in a disaster like this.
Oh, yeah.
Or all the things they say are like, yeah, that's kind of like how you would say something
Yeah.
like this to a kid.
Yeah.
and
Like,
and that's the double-edged sword of having a really mainstream actor. It's
Right.
that they will do a really good job, but the problem is it's at the cost of plot armor, and
Right.
they have more control over the what's happening in the movie, so they're gonna want to sway where it goes rather
Yeah.
than it being a completely directorial or writer's choice.
yeah.
So it's kind of just because I think John Cusack, you never worried that he was gonna die throughout the whole movie because he's a big actor and
Yeah,
this just isn't that kind of movie.
I was ever concerned he was going
Yeah.
to die.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say, like, yeah, I wasn't exactly concerned he was going to die, but I would not have been upset if he did
No,
die.
you wouldn't have been upset.
Like, it would
but
have
you
been
have to-
like,
But you think of the movie, he is kind of carrying the movie as the actor side. I mean, the explosions and the disasters are carrying the movie, but you can't just show like, oh, here, look at this mountain explode. Oh,
Yeah.
here, look at this, it's gonna cave in, without some plot interweaved somewhere.
yeah.
So you kind of have to make the main character invincible unless you kind of do like, oh, this one's about this guy, they die. Now we're going to move on to a different ooh, that would be a really cool disaster movie. Imagine like a chain of events where like you start with one guy
pass the torch to
and
someone
pass
else
the
when
torch
they
to
die.
the next one when they die, but they like somehow met each other. So it's like almost an anthology, but
There's a movie called The
through
Place
different
Beyond the Pines.
disasters.
There's a movie called The Place Beyond the Pines. It's not a disaster movie, but it does that.
Kinda
where
similar,
it's you think you are with the main character and then they die and it passes it on to someone else in the third act and then passes it on again to someone else in the third.
That's
the final act.
That's a cool format. It only works with a very specific kind of movie, though, or
Right.
very specific kinds of movies.
Yeah. Anyway, we are at the final flood, the world-ending flood. The Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, and I'm just going to call all these people by their actor names. That's just kind of where we're at this point. Convinces people to open up the ark, let as many people in as they can, right before the big old wave hits the ships. So this is our final disaster sequence, the massive wave. We see it kind of go over the Tibetan mountains there. I think that's an awesome visual, by the way. I don't care how unrealistic it is. It just looks really cool. So let's rank our final disaster here, the world-ending flood.
Yeah.
and everything that comes with it.
I like it more than the Yellowstone one. I think just purely because it's different. The Yellowstone, for even though it's not in a city setting, is just a little too similar to the first act disaster in my mind. So I like this visual effect of just an encroaching flood or tidal wave that's just so huge.
I put it at number 3. I think after Earthquake and Volcano.
Titanic still has like one of the best water incidents, though. It's not even a tsunami, but just the y'all were talking about how like the water just creeps in and
We're
stuff,
ranking this final sequence.
and that's
though.
cool. Well, I was just comparing it to other water disasters, and I don't find this one to be that
Yeah.
like too terrible. I don't know. I think it's just because I'm not really super invested in it. It's still really cool to
It's
see.
story versus CGI because I agree with Noah. Whereas the CG and the effects make it very spectacle. It's a very big spectacle and very well done. But because you're not as emotionally invested with it, it kind of
the effect
doesn't
is
land as much.
diminished.
I don't care.
Yeah, so where are we at here? We got Earthquake, Volcano, Wave,
Wave?
Airplane,
Question mark?
Bigger Wave. Does that make it into third place for us?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
deserves third.
Okay. All right. We got final ranking, Earthquake, Volcano, Bigger Wave, Smaller Wave, with the including the Kennedy killing
We
the
can
president.
Call it lowercase.
And then Yuri's death. Or not Yuri's, Sasha's.
Plane crash death. Okay, that's the official ranking for our disasters.
All right.
How do we feel about the end of this movie, where everything wraps up, and how are we feeling overall at this point?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
No, Irene and I were watching this, and I can tell you, I was invested for 3/4 of this movie, and I didn't realize that there was going to be a stopping point for me. Like I thought I was riding the wave, and then it got to the point where they overstayed their welcome, and there was a lot of things where I'm like, you are really fishing to add more stuff to this,
The movie is 2 hours and 38 minutes long.
and it's too long.
This feels like a movie that's a little more of a personal project than it is trying to really appeal to me. And maybe just other people that love disaster movies and can't get enough of it. But yeah, at some point I got very distracted very easily because I think once it got to that moment where the arcs were just kind of moving and then like hitting each other and hitting other rocks, I kind of like looked away for a little bit, and I admit I was looking at my phone, and then I looked up at one point and I literally said to David, like, wait, this is still happening? Like, this is still going on.
It's the same kind of like cacophony you'd see in a Transformers movie.
Yeah.
I would take this over a Transformers movie for sure. But it starts to get to the point where you're just like, okay, I've seen the same thing like over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't need it beaten in my head anymore.
I also feel like at this point you sort of just know where things are gonna go.
Yeah.
You know, like I at least with the other ones you knew, oh yeah, some new disaster is about to happen, and you're invested for that. But here you're in the final act, you're just like, oh yeah, the boats are gonna have like some issues, but they're trying to take the holistic approach, or not holistic approach, but the wholesome approach, where, oh yeah, we'll save all the people, and they're trying to inject a little suspense there, like maybe they won't make it.
Yeah.
I know they're gonna make it because this movie isn't that cruel.
make it.
I love how he like we already brought up Titanic, but he definitely watched Titanic. They
Oh,
were like, we have to
yeah.
have an underwater sequence
Yep.
where like John Cusack's in serious danger and like, oh, is he gonna make it? Yada yada yada. Just,
Yeah, I just didn't feel that pressure. I didn't feel the suspense or the threat of it. So like I said, I felt comfort in knowing I could look away and just wait for the finale.
Y'all were talking about how invested we were in the story, and I was actually like pretty decently entertained throughout this movie. up until they made it onto the arc, so to speak, and then at that point it fizzled to me.
That's exactly where it fizzled for me.
I think it's just at that point it's
Yeah.
not interesting because all the real disaster is done.
Well, and
Yeah.
also,
Also, you know, it's like, oh, they've made it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the extra tension they added that didn't feel real was the fact that they created the drama that was the last hour of the movie.
Yep.
Of them sneaking on and then somehow clogging up the chambers with the stepdad's dead body. Like,
Yeah.
not really, but I mean, it's like
I
they
love
had
how
to
that's the
solve
big
their
thing
own.
that is making the ships
They had to
not
solve
work.
their own freaking problem,
I know.
and I was like, you know how you could fix this? Just don't add it. It did
Yeah.
nothing for the movie.
I think this movie would have been way more interesting if, you know, the disasters won and all of humans perished, and then a big floating baby from space came in.
Like Cabin in the Woods combined with 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah, and was like, you failed.
You
are
do
not
not pass
worthy.
the test. Humanity loses. That's the great filter.
Oh, that would be
Reese.
interesting
to
if it was
Titan.
all a simulation. It was like,
Oh,
oh, you failed
yeah.
the
Oh
simulation.
God! We're just imagine we're all just a part of a simulation running right now. We're not. We're nothing.
Yep.
All right, so the arc, they survive.
The end.
The boyfriend is forgotten completely.
Entirely.
Yeah,
They
pretty
carry on
much.
with their lives.
It's like
Amanda Pete's
Inside
character
Out.
loves her, ex hubby's book.
Which who didn't see this coming?
I know.
Like it was so designed to be this way, and you could tell it from the
Yeah, I
start.
know.
But yeah, whatever. That's the end of the movie. Any final thoughts?
They make it.
They make
They
it.
make it.
They do make it, David.
Yeah.
And all the rich people and the little boys. Okay, that
Yeah. All the
Is
rich
this
people
Jeffrey Epstein?
with their
And their
little
little
boy.
boys.
I mean, it's 2009. Epstein might have made it on that.
I know, he probably-
Oh, he would have.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
For
the
$1 billion?
unfortunate part.
Can we talk about the tsunami?
Yeah,
the
yeah,
big one?
let's do it.
Yep.
And the big flood?
Yes.
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 Okay, does anybody remember where the arcs were?
Turkey.
No.
I
Russia.
thought they were in China.
They were in China,
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the actual Noah's Ark.
up on the Tibetan Plateau, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just off the top of your head, you happen to know the elevation of the Tibetan Plateau?
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
say-
off the top of my head.
About 15,000 feet.
I'm gonna say pretty high.
Yeah, pretty high.
Just like our estimation of how far down the core is.
Pretty deep.
pretty dang high. So they definitely had an elastic vertical scale on this movie. Mm-hmm. So 3,000 meters, which is 10,000 feet or so.
Hey.
So I think I read somewhere that they were set in the Cho-Ming Valley, which of course is fictitious, but there is kind of the Grand Canyon of China, Tibet is in that area where this is supposed to be. So huge canyon, actually bigger than the Grand Canyon, but high elevation. So the biggest tsunami that I know of was that recent earthquake-related tsunami that wiped out the nuclear reactors in Japan.
2011.
Fukushima,
So
right?
the height of that, was that anywhere close to 10,000 feet?
I don't know. Was it?
No, it was about, let's see, I have it written in my notes here. Which ones? 130 feet.
That's it?
And that was a magnitude 9.1 earthquake. So that was a big earthquake.
So
Wow.
10.5 is what they're saying.
Well, they say 10.9, which isn't really possible on this planet, but that's okay. So anyway, one problem is you'd have to have a massive tsunami to get from what we have seen as large ones at 130 feet to 10,000 feet.
Does anyone want to look up like the largest tsunami?
The
in
other
existence?
thing is, okay, where did all this water come from?
Yeah, true.
Ocean.
So the tsunami hits, and then it's kind of like Noah's flood, right? So the whole
Right.
planet is covered by water, presumably this deep,
Yeah.
10,000 feet higher than it normally is.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So here's another question for you. Since I know you're all well versed in Earth science,
Of course.
if we were to melt all of the ice on the planet, which would, I guess, if we were heating up the core like this, that would mean everything in Antarctica, everything in Greenland, all the mountain glaciers, all of that. If we melted that, how much water would that give us? Like
Probably not enough to reach this level that we're talking about.
that would raise sea level by about a little over 200 feet. So we still have about 9,800 feet to go. So that would be my big question: is where did all this water come from?
Well, it's
actually an insane
being
amount to begin with.
displaced.
Yeah, it's suctioned from the other side of the world.
Yeah, it's
Somebody asked about the largest tsunami.
Yeah.
So the largest recorded broke out July 1958 and claimed only 5 lives, but it was 1,720 feet tsunami towering over Lituya Bay.
1,720 feet.
That's what it says.
it is a very
Really?
large tsunami.
That's what it says. I looked up the first thing I could find, whether or not it's credible or not. I don't know.
I think just with movie magic, the laws of physics and the world do not apply, especially in disaster movies.
Yeah. I didn't even go into any of the details about plot about this or Oliver Platt.
At this point, I
Platt's
think
character and all that stuff and just all the governmental
I've had
BS.
problems with the plot, but by the end of the movie, I just realized the plot has no relevance.
Yeah, it's a disaster movie.
It's just there because they need one.
Survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that concludes our 2012 discussion. Yeah, there's more we could have talked about. But this is a disaster movie. We are giving it what it gave us, and that's, I feel like, fair. Correct?
Yeah.
All right, so let's put a pin in this one, take a quick break, and on the other end, we will talk about what critics thought, go into our reviews, except flip-flop those, because we will do our reviews first, and we'll go into some box office, and then do a little bit of franchise talk. So we'll see y'all then. Welcome back. Let's talk 2012.
2012.
2012. David, you got our scores there.
I do.
Why don't you pull them at random there?
I guess we'll start with the first one, which is me, David, with a 6.5.
All right.
Hey, that's really encroaching on
Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Tomb of the Dragon
It really
Emperor's score.
is.
At
one
0.5
of the-
is because there were no Yetis.
One of the few occasions where I literally thought, is this better than Tomb of the Dragon Emperor?
Like I
And
could
was
see
like,
you were
no.
starting to get excited
No.
when the plane crashed and they were on an icy,
Yeah.
like
He's
surface.
like,
It was
"Oh,
in
where are
Tibet.
the
Maybe.
Yetis.
Maybe. And then no
No.
Yetis. David infamously gave The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor a 7 out of 10. Continue,
Yes.
David.
And I'm giving this one a 6.5. It is adequate. It is above average in some areas. I think the CGI, it makes it better than what the rest of it ends up being.
The disasters.
Yeah, I mean, what they do with the disasters are very, very well done. But the whole stringing together of everything just doesn't work as well. And watching it one time, I could do it.
So, do you actually like Tomb of the Dragon Emperor more
Yes,
than this?
I do.
So you do think Tomb of the Dragon Emperor
deserves
is a
a
7?
7, and I stand by it.
He's not going to back down
All right,
on that.
all right.
Hey, he's a man of his word.
You have gone
Today,
back on your word, but now you've come back.
specifically, I stand by the 7.
You've gone back on going back on your word.
I have. Screw that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
And now, a couple weeks from now, you're gonna
Who knows?
go back on that word.
And I can fight myself in the future or the past.
All right,
I'll do
finish
it.
your review, David.
This movie is adequate. They do really, really, really good job with special effects. Storyline is and it'll drag on quite a bit. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, this might be your disaster movie. For me, a 6.5 is almost better than what it probably deserves, but I'll leave it at that.
It's entertaining.
That's why I gave it a 6.5. Next up, before my dog eats it, Irina with a 6.
It's enjoyable in some ways. It's not remarkable, though. Like, I think we had mentioned before that there are scenes that are very memorable. So I think that's what a lot of this score goes to, is just the special effects in general are very markable, but I don't think there's much plot-wise that gives it any credit, because imagine if these special effects were not that great. This
It'd be bad.
maybe would be a horrible film that possibly had a cult following.
Yeah.
I don't find anything very positive about it other than these big moments, and maybe that's the point. But I would have scored it higher if it was mostly just about that.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they try to incorporate this sort of heartfelt note where, oh yeah, a family that's separated, over all the odds comes back together, and the people they met along the way, it's all very like half-hearted and generic. And like I said, it feels like there was just sort of a plot generator that they plugged in a lot of these characters into and just decided, oh yeah, that's what we're going with. So I think that a lot of the special effects take my positive part of the score, and then everything else is kind of trash.
All right.
So we
Fair
have
enough.
6.5 and 6, pretty consistent so far.
6.5. Next up is Reese with a 6.
Yep, so echoing a lot of what Irina said, I do admire Roland Emmerich for just putting it all out on the table, being like, every freaking disaster is going to be in this. And they somehow found a way to have John Cusack encounter every single one of those disasters. Like, it is a visual spectacle. I'm not sure how much it cares about its actual plot. I think Roland Emmerich, when I watch him behind the scenes, he is one of those guys who's very similar to Michael Bay, where it's like, this will look really cool if we do this. And he effectively conveys the looking of very cool when you watch it. So the disaster sequences are great. They definitely carry this movie. The performances aren't bad.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish they were more in line with what Woody Harrelson is doing in this movie. Which, like, if we had all these over-the-top performances, it would be more fun. Or if it went completely the other direction and weirdly tried to take everything super seriously and made some, like, case for why this could actually happen, could also be interesting. But it doesn't straddle that line very well between being serious and over-the-top. But I still, like, I admire the ambition of it. Watching it again, I think I appreciate it more than I did in the original viewing. It's just a huge movie. Like, there are few movies that are bigger than this one in scale and in just, like, what's crazy is the plane crash sequence, which we think is the most disappointing sequence of this movie, or at least the least impressive, would be the finale of any other action movie. Like, it's like, there's so many, like, finale action moments in this movie back to back to back to back. And that's a problem and a good thing, because since they're so packed in together, they diminish each other because you've seen it already once and you're like, okay, again.
Another one.
But it's still also impressive, just the sheer scale of this stupid thing.
Yeah.
And the effects look super good, and I don't hate it. Like, I enjoyed my experience with it. It's just not a good movie. It's fine to enjoy something that is also not good. So that's my takeaway. What were you gonna say, Irina?
I just think, like, something that could have even improved that marginally was at least showing our main character or one of the characters being aware of how ridiculous it is that they keep falling into
Are y'all serious?
disaster.
What is this?
Yeah, it's like, what the hell is happening? Kind of a thing.
Like the audience surrogate who's like,
never,
wait, really? We're like, what, there's a volcano now?
Yes, exactly. There needs to be an audience surrogate somewhere, because they're kind of trying to create this comedic but also serious tone, and I think you need a audience surrogate to really carry that for you.
What's his name from Arrested Development? Just imagine him going, "Oh, come on!" Like, on a volcano?
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Job. He's the best.
Let's get our final score here.
It's me. You can cue me up whenever, David.
He's gonna
and
take
last
his time.
Is Noah
Thank you.
bumping up from a 4.5 to a 5? Is what it looked like. Hard to tell?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Too low.
No, it's not.
One of those movies where I don't even care. It's just like,
It's not.
that's about
This
right.
movie is only entertaining. That's the only thing it's got.
What's the big?
But
Is that what you want?
I was gonna say 6 points for entertainment, 0.5 points for or detracted for Oleg, and then 0.5 points detracted for Alec.
Wait, so you don't add points for groundbreaking CGI?
I already did.
Oh, so that's part of, you said entertaining.
Oh, can I
6
say
Yeah,
something?
well, that's it. Kind of
It was
goes hand in
entertaining
hand for
because-
this.
Can I say?
Yeah,
can I say
exactly.
something that will spark controversy? I think
What?
this movie looks better than CGI wise, better than almost all of the Marvel movies.
So that's not that controversial. Well, there are some really good Marvel moments, but then there are a lot of not great Marvel CGs.
The reason I talked about this a little bit, and I think it's not controversial because this movie, if there's one thing you can say it did well, it's CGI.
Yeah.
That said, I do disagree in some cases. So where Marvel fails is the uncanny valley of we're recreating a
movement
real
of
object.
characters, yeah.
We're
Yeah.
recreating a real object into CG or a real person
think-
into CG, but then whenever they're creating a thing that's they've made up, it looks spectacular
Right.
in Marvel.
I think for Marvel, they kind of get away with it because it is based on comic books.
Yeah.
So you're not really with a trained eye trying to nitpick any of that. So, but with this, you're trying to think, well, what's the plausibility of this happening, and then kind of taking note of what
Yeah.
looks real and what doesn't.
And I will say for this, I actually don't think they have as good CG as Marvel does because the things that they CGified aren't that as technically difficult to make CG as what Marvel does. So here, let's do a blast. It's not going to be as hard as recreating, Thanos. Or and Thanos looks amazing. And then in this case, there are a couple of moments where the ground splitting at the beginning, and it splits across a parking lot, and the grass splits just like a rock does, and there's no layers beneath, and it's well, that looks fake.
Yeah, I know what you're
So
talking about.
there are a number of moments where this doesn't hold up with CG.
I will say
but
that a character like
scale is
Thanos,
cool.
though, he is not something you would recognize in real life.
yeah, true.
So we haven't seen images of something like him, but we have seen images of an explosion or, cracks in the ground. So we do have a basis in reality to compare.
And study.
So
and-
it's easier to create
replicate.
something a little more fanciful and just believe it.
David,
Yeah.
you pull up that Excel spreadsheet for
I
the
already got
scores?
it.
You got it? Okay, I got the score for this one.
5.9.
5.9 overall for 2012. Noah pulling it from the 6s down into the 5s.
It doesn't deserve the 6s. You all know it.
I
Well,
mean,
let's take a look at what's around it and we'll discuss.
yeah, give us, what's the range here?
All right, so it's tied with King Arthur 2004 at a 5.9. Just below, we have Now You See Me and Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron at 5.8. And just above, we have Cowboys and Aliens and Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides at 6s.
So I agree with all of this, except I do think I might put this one above Cowboys and Aliens.
Really?
Yeah, they're in a similar ballpark, so I don't really care. But
I'm not
for me-
in love with Cowboys and Aliens, but I'd take that over this one.
I take the sheer disaster spectacle of this as being more impressive than anything in Cowboys and Aliens.
That's
okay,
fine.
okay, that's entertainment, but if you're
Yeah, the characters aren't as good.
Yeah.
But no, the disaster in this is done so well.
Yeah.
Where it's like
yeah, it's
no,
done-
if I
it's done
want to
pretty well.
show someone hey, best freaking earthquake, best freaking volcano, I'm I come to this. It is
They
top-
do look cool.
The thing is, there's nothing that Cowboys and Aliens does that's top tier.
Yeah.
Whereas there's things in this that, yes, it's definitely bottom tier.
This
but
is Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think there's certain sequences in this that are like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
like my eyes did get bigger as I watched it. Like,
Yeah.
You're like, ooh.
I think there's, going off of what you're saying, there's a function to this movie, whereas Cowboys and Aliens, you don't really know when you're going to insert it into your life again.
Yeah.
Like, with this, I could imagine,
Disaster
going
movie
to a
marathon,
party,
or, yeah.
and people
Getting
are putting
drunk.
on disaster movies,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, here's 2012, that was a good one, you know?
Yeah,
But
Cowboys
with
and Aliens, you never
you're
revisit.
just kind of
Yeah,
like, I don't
that's
really
fair.
see a reason to put this on, you
yeah,
know?
it's just kind of like bland. Like, it's
Yeah.
fine, but it's like,
I'm sure
Yeah,
there's a
it-
reason that David and I could come to re-put it on.
I'm sure. But there's, I think at least when there's spectacle to something, like this is a movie you don't need to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
It's just on. There are cool effects. You're eating dip and chips and whatever,
I
and
agree.
it's just there,
This-
and you're like, yeah, cool, John Cusack. You
The
know?
scenario surrounding watching 2012
Yeah.
is more interesting than
Yeah.
the scenario surrounding watching
Right.
Cowboys and Aliens.
In the end, I think that we can agree that it's in the right ballpark.
Right.
I will say, and we didn't touch on this a lot, I will say it like leaned more into the Mayan calendar nonsense of it all.
Yeah.
Like, since it's already a ridiculous movie, just having the setup be more like, the calendar ends here.
Right.
Like, it is destined that there is an apocalypse.
You just want like a weird slapstick over the top kind of disaster movie.
Well, it's
and that's
called
okay.
2012 because of that
Yeah.
whole phenomenon.
I think
you know?
there's I wonder, and I didn't really look this up, but I do wonder if part of what complicates this film is it was done 3 years before, or released 3 years before 2012, and maybe they were trying not to make too much of a hype over 2012 being the end of the world. You know,
Yeah.
like trying to balance it where, hey, what if it does end? But also making it seem a little too ridiculous, so
Yeah.
you don't create this widespread panic. Like,
You know what would have single-handedly raised this 2 points in my mind
Right.
if they had done this in the movie? If, like, as people are getting on and then like scrambling to get on, like
yeah,
like as everyone's like finally coming, suddenly they start seeing like 2 pairs of each animal going in. The guy's like,
yeah.
"What's going on?"
What's
and they're all just
happening?
like traveling
come
onto the traveling onto the thing. It's
Yeah,
like, we gotta
yeah.
leave. It's like, they're not letting us.
They do show the animals being
they
transported
do.
to
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
the... Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
There's some
no,
giraffes
there's
and
a bunch
stuff.
of giraffes and elephants.
Oh,
that literally
interesting.
happens in this movie.
I just didn't remember.
But we don't have the reactions. Though.
But
Yeah.
it would just be more amusing if they, on their own, like, were just like there suddenly and just making their way, and the
Right.
chaos
Like, if
ensues, and
they
people are
kinda
getting
were-
trampled,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to say. I guess that's it. Let's move on to critics. Don't cheat. Don't cheat, Noah. Noah's trying to cheat. I'm just kidding. He's not trying to cheat. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie had a 39% from critics, with a 47% from audiences. On Metacritic, a 49 out of 100, and a 5.6 from audiences. And on IMDb, a 5.8. So,
What we gave it basically.
what we
Yeah.
gave it, basically, pretty much. We're in line a lot. I feel like that's pretty indicative of, I don't know. Yeah,
We're just very average people.
We're attuned.
Yeah, we're average. We just are always
We're
in
not
the
critics.
middle point of
Yeah.
the opinion.
Yep.
Box office, are y'all ready for this? This is the fun part.
Yeah, I love it.
Movie was budgeted at $200 million.
That makes sense.
It's a
Yeah.
spicy meatball.
makes
It
sense.
is expensive. It released wide on November 13th in 2009. Also playing in theaters at the time, A Christmas Carol, that Jim Carrey movie.
Oh.
Precious, The Men Who Stare at Goats, and This Is It, and The Fourth Kind, that sci-fi found footage movie.
Fun fact
wow.
about that movie.
Yep. All right. What did this movie make worldwide? Let's start with you, Noah.
I'm being attacked by a dog, chewing on my hand and sucking on it at the same time.
She does that.
Just what Noah likes.
Okay. Anyways, you said 200 million was the budget.
Yep.
I think this probably had a decent amount of hype surrounding it, but I also think that people probably were like, "Oh yeah, it was pretty cool, but ultimately kind of dumb," which makes me think it probably just like made nearly double, or maybe a little over double.
What's
I'll
the number?
say 450 million.
450.
Yeah.
Arena.
This is gonna sound weird, but I'm just gonna say 200 million.
Dang. Bombed.
Well,
David.
I guess I'm just gonna split the difference here and say 300 million.
300. Noah's the winner.
Well, whatever.
450 for Noah.
Noah cheated.
What
We all
was
saw it.
Do you know how
Yeah.
much it did?
How much?
Noah wasn't even close. It did 791 million.
Good.
What?
Movie was a big hit.
Okay.
Big hit.
Sure.
Didn't do as well in the U.S. It did like 166 million in the U.S., which is good. But it really cleaned up overseas. The movie was a big hit and really put wind in the sails of Roland Emmerich, and that's why he still makes movies like Moonfall and all these other things today. Like you have to think, he had to have this hit, otherwise he would probably not still be making movies today.
That's true.
He did Independence Day.
And 2012, I think it's one of those movies where that's something you tell your friends, like, hey, you know that everyone's talking about the Mayan calendar and how it's going to end.
Right.
Everyone's gonna end. Your mom.
There's
She's
this movie
religious. I
called
know.
2012, guys. Let me go see it. What? That's the
true.
only reason
That's
I
how
think
it
that
is.
people went and saw this.
And
Like,
those are the only kinds of people that went to see it.
Yeah, bro.
And then everyone watched it and was like, that was a 2012 movie. And they told other people, like, yeah, that was like the world ended in that movie. That definitely happened. And then the people who heard that from those people were like, hey, yeah, I've heard 2012 is like, you know, it's the world ends. That sounds pretty
John
cool. And then
Cusack, like from
they saw
16
that.
Candles?
Yeah. So the movie did okay. Like, it did okay in the U.S. and it did great worldwide. That's it. Mm-hmm. Is there any franchise talk here? Do we got anything else?
I believe there has to be.
Well, there were plans, even before the movie came out, for a TV show
What?
to release a spinoff
Whoa. Okay.
that would depict the events after the big old 2012 disaster. It would be a post-apocalyptic drama with very little action. There would be like people cleaning up their lives, or, you know, survivors from the accident dealing with all sorts of post-apocalyptic stuff, whatever you do in the post-apocalyptic environment.
Play golf.
I think it was going to be ABC that was going to be making it. However, that did fall through and did not end up happening.
So kind of like a macrocosm of Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that's happening right now with that movie Greenland
Oh, yeah.
that came out. There's a sequel that's been greenlit to it. Greenland got the green light for a sequel. But that movie's still in the works, apparently, but that'll also be like how do we rebuild type of movie, which to me doesn't sound as interesting if you want to go see a disaster movie. Like, I don't really care how people rebuild from this. I just want to see things go boom in my disaster movies. But maybe, like, I think post-apocalyptic movies only work if your apocalypse happens at the beginning of the movie, and then, or it's already happened in the past, and it's just
Yeah.
like you're living in the post. I'm not as interested in seeing a disaster movie and then seeing the aftermath, but I don't know. Maybe you guys are. What do y'all think?
I'd watch it probably.
I think there are enough shows and movies that kind of deal with that concept already. Like, for instance, Walking Dead already covers some of that, so it scratches the itch for me.
Yeah.
I don't really feel a need to watch a follow-up after this. Yeah.
Definitely doesn't beg for it.
But it nearly happened.
Why didn't
And
it
it didn't.
happen?
It just didn't. It just fell through. Like,
up.
it
I think
it
it's-
seemed like it was going to be I think it might have been an expenses type problem.
I also bet interest waned.
Yeah.
I-
Also, like,
The characters aren't interesting enough to carry that through. Like you would, yeah.
Yeah, and also 2012 wasn't received super well. Like, it wasn't, like, the most horribly reviewed movie ever.
Right.
But it was, like, there's no enthusiasm for this. And the main selling point of 2012 is the disaster spectacle. So you're going to make a sequel that doesn't have the main selling point of 2012?
Right.
Like, that, like, who's going to watch that?
It would be a huge risk.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the money did come from people building up like, oh, we're nearing 2012. We've all heard about the calendar. We should check it out.
Yeah. But, yeah, didn't happen. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say this would be a cooler story if they followed more with the Mayan calendar.
Yeah.
But
Thus ends our discussions on 2012. Next episode still TBD at this point, but it will be disaster related. I can guarantee that. We have decided to do a disaster miniseries, but it's kind of like a decide as we go type of situation here. So we're going to discuss what we talk about next, and it'll just be a bit of a surprise next week for you. So,
All right.
this was fun. 2012. Next week, who knows? Goodbye, you guys.
later.